Good morning, one and all. Sarve Santu Niramayaha. This is an ideal that we all, uh, we, we Indians have held very high. Hope everybody is free of disease and Lokas Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May this world be filled with happiness and positivity. Praying that everybody is doing good. I, Bhavana Kashyap, would like to welcome you all to the webinar this morning. This is the sixth webinar of the webinar series Vikasana NEP 2020 Vision to Action. And today we have with us Shri Tejasvi Suryaji, the MP from Bengaluru South, our youth leader who has come to address us all on the topic NEP 2020, a paradigm shift in the Indian education scenario. This person with us needs no introduction. He is our leader, our youth icon, and we all admire him and look up to him for his commitment towards the causes that he has taken up. And he is very dear to all of us at Disha Bharat. We know him very well here. So without much ado, I would like to welcome Tejasvi sir once again. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time off in the busy COVID schedule. We understand how much pressures you have today, but you have kept up the commitment and you are with us this morning. We are very grateful for that.
Thank you.
I wouldn't like to take more time. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Yes. Namaste, everybody. I wish all of you lots of happiness and lots of good health. Before we start, I want to take a minute to thank all those countless people who are directly and indirectly working relentlessly to ensure that India wins over this very grave challenge of this pandemic. This has not been an easy time for us, but the country truly has come as one and is supporting each other to overcome this very serious battle. On behalf of all of you, I want to take a minute to remember all those great people. So much dedication, so much relentless hard work that they're all putting in. Let us all pray for their strength and their well-being. Friends, we all have gathered today to speak about the national education policy at a time where we are facing a lot of challenges to the public healthcare system. I want to draw a couple of parallels to understand how this education policy has made a paradigm shift by taking examples from the present day status of the national education, national public health system of the country. In the last so many years, medical education in India was extremely regulated, and establishing a medical college was one of the most difficult challenges, which created an artificial barrier for many educational entrepreneurs to start medical colleges and consequently increase the number of the supply of qualified medical professionals in the country. These strong, stringent regulations and guidelines, which gravely regulated the medical education sector and therefore resulted in the shortage of qualified medical professional for the country, does not hold good only for the medical education sector, but is something that is broadly across the whole higher education space. Today, we are witnessing how the country is now facing a shortage of medical professionals as a result of the bad policies of over-regulation of a sector, not allowing players easily in the sector, not opening up for private capital, private enterprise. What was the consequence? We are witnessing it today. So one very important aspect of the national education policy is that it understands that over-regulation. There are a lot of vice chancellors and many other senior people participating in today's seminar. All of you are aware how over-regulation curtails the freedom, autonomy, and independence of an institution. And that debilitates the spirit of the institution in growing large. So one big change that the national education policy has tried to bring is to ensure that there will be very soft regulation. There will be effective regulation, but there will be less rules. There will be clearly defined rules. And these rules are made with the objective not to curtail educational institutions, but they are made with the intent of helping them grow bigger, ensuring that they get more students, and that their quality of output will be better. So one very important aspect of the NEP, using the words of the NEP itself, is that this educational institution, this education policy, starting from the school level to the higher education level, is something that will focus on more accountability, but less legislative and statutory embargoes. So this is going to start, say, with self-declaration by schools on what they can do, to higher education institutions giving more accountability. We all know how, if you are running a school, one would know how the inspector Raj of the school inspectors, the block education officers, education inspectors continues to this day. And that is also a den of corruption. So one important aspect of change is these officers, officials, bureaucrats who would unnecessarily were empowered to create problems and hurdles and bottlenecks in the administration of private educational institutions. Those powers have been drastically curtailed and more autonomy is granted. This is one very important change. Friends, I want to come to the broader aspects of this policy. The very first aspect of this policy is that this perhaps is one of the most participative policy making attempts made in India ever. In the last 2.5, 3 years, more than 1 lakh people, organizations, different stakeholders were all consulted extensively. It was only after these wide-ranging consultations that the National Education Policy 2020 was given a form and was floated. Therefore, the arguments, the criticisms, the allegations that the National Education Policy was not discussed enough with stakeholders holds no water, and it can be dismissed as saying that perhaps those people who want the status quo to continue, those people who do not want the change to take place, are criticizing this unnecessarily because they have certain vested interests to protect. So the first point was that this is a policy that is going to bring a radical shift because this is going to give more autonomy, is going to trust our educational entrepreneurs more, and is going to, starting from school to higher education, ensure there are going to be less rules, but clear rules and clear enforcement. Second, that this is the most participatory policy ever made. And this policy, in addition to being the most participatory, is also going to be that one particular policy of the government which is going to be having the most drastic impact, because this policy is going to be affecting the largest number of Indians in the coming years. So this is also the most important public policy review in that regard. What are the main changes that have been brought in terms of how we approach education? Friends, one very important, at least from the perspective of someone who has just, not very long ago come out of university and college, is that when we were in school and college, we had this very rigid and artificial distinction between science and social science subjects and arts subjects, if you can call them, in those two broad categories. If I wanted to study economics along with physics, if I wanted to study chemistry as well as, say, history, that was something that we couldn't do because of this very rigid and artificial differentiation in the curriculum. Likewise, in the school, there was a similar rigid and very artificial differentiation between curricular and extracurricular activities. Both these things have now been changed. For a very long time at the school level, this artificial distinction between curricular and non-curricular activities made those people who were good at non-curricular, the quote-unquote non-curricular activities, feel that they were inadequate and what they were doing was not very important in life. As a result of that, if I were to just make a parallel with other countries and India in just the Olympic Games performance, isn't it baffling, my dear friends, that for a country of a 1 billion population, our performance in Olympics and such national, international sporting events is so abysmally bad? The reason for that can be attributed to this artificial distinction between curricular, extracurricular activities in school, which laid an overwhelming and unnecessary emphasis on curricular activities and thereby denied those people who were really talented in pursuing a lot of other things the source of encouragement and necessary infrastructure. So this change will now enable every single individual to pursue the talent that is inherent in them. If you're a great writer, this policy is going to encourage you. If you're good at sport, if you're good at music, if you're good at dance, if you're good at anything which every single individual is blessed with, this education policy now is going to be supportive of all of that instead of discouraging. In the same way, in the higher education level, this education policy is now going to remove this artificial barrage between arts and science and is going to give the choice for the student to study what he wants, because this is now in some sort of a way recognizing that all knowledge is important and that this distinction that hitherto we were following was only an artificial and an unnatural distinction, and therefore we are very clear that this is something that we had to move past. So this is one big change that has now taken place in the new education policy. In the same way, the education policy also focuses on the national professional standard setting for teachers. Now, for a very long time in this country, we have been complaining, and I would say that to a great extent, there has been merit in this complaint, that the quality of teachers in this country has been drastically and rapidly falling. Now, this education policy, by setting national professional standards setting for the teachers and professors, is going to ensure that right from the school to the higher education level, there is a body that monitors the quality of the training that is imparted to teachers, also evaluates the continuous career progression of teachers, incentivizes good performance, incentivizes better learning, incentivizes more skilling of the teachers, upskilling of teachers continuously, and ensures that the highest professional standards are maintained by teachers throughout the education system. The most critical component in an education system, just like the students, are the teachers. So this educational policy is rightly focusing on quality enhancement of teachers, setting up very important benchmarks for teacher training, and also by maintaining these national professional standards, it is also going to bring about a sense of healthy competition between teachers of different states, different streams of education, and it'll facilitate transfer and peer learning of best practices, which is only going to benefit the country's education system in general. So that is another very important aspect of governance change that this educational policy is endeavoring to make. In addition to that, friends, the national education policy is also focusing on two important things, which was a complaint of a lot of people. One, the education policy today is unfortunately not heavily focused on both local context as well as local language. This, for a very long time, has been in many ways the curse of the Indian education system. Perhaps we are one of the few countries in the world where the irony is that we try to judge the brilliance or intellectual ability of an individual on the basis of how good he speaks the English language. And so many geniuses in the country have not been allowed to blossom and come forward because of this curse of asking them to prove their capacity in a foreign language, the ability to speak in a foreign language. This education policy, while recognizing the importance of English and English language for communication as well as global importance, and stressing the importance of learning the language, also now re-emphasizes or brings back the attention to learning in Indian languages, and most importantly in our mother tongue. So this National Education Policy 2020 asks institutions to consider making learning in the mother tongue mandatory from 0 to 8th grade. And studies have continuously proven that comprehension in those levels, at those ages, is highest if done in the mother tongue. Therefore, that I think is going to be a very, very important aspect. In addition to that, the 3-language policy flexibility that has been introduced is also a game changer. For all these days, we had English, Kannada, English, Hindi, and the regional language. But this education policy is now bringing you the flexibility of choosing any 2 Indian languages. So if I feel that being in Karnataka, interaction is higher with people in Tamil Nadu, therefore it is more important for me to learn Tamil than Hindi, this education policy is going to permit me for the first time. For a very long time, because of this 3-language policy, which had Hindi as a mandatory option, many North Indian people who otherwise wanted to learn South Indian languages were deprived of that opportunity. And given the fact that such a large number of people from North India keep coming to the south of India for jobs and for other economic opportunities, and this migration is continuously taking place in the country, this flexibility in learning all Indian languages, giving the choice to the people, is something that is very important and has been done for the first time. This is going to further strengthen all Indian languages, give more strength to the speaking of these languages, and is going to be a great step towards preservation, propagation of all Indian languages. This is about the local language. In the same way, local context also has been given extreme importance. For a very long time, we studied more about the geographies, the history, the culture of different cultures outside of India than our own immediate neighboring surroundings. This, I would say, has been a leftover of the colonial imprint on our education system. I keep saying this anecdote very jokingly. I was in some village of North Karnataka a few years ago to attend some program, and I happened to visit a person's house there. He was a farmer, and he was sitting outside talking to all of us. His son came back from school and very promptly started, in a few minutes, um, starting to learn, start doing his homework. Then I saw the father very upset. I asked him, sir, it looks like your son is like the typical, quote unquote, Adarsh Balak who just after coming back from school is already starting doing his homework. Why are you upset? And the farmer father said, last 2 years we don't have proper rainfall. We have been trying to do all kinds of mannats to the local god, all harke, all these kind of puja, jatri, all of these things that we have been doing, asking for rain gods to be kind on us. But this son of mine, the moment he comes back from school, starts, chanting these rhymes, saying, rain, rain, go away, little Johnny wants to play. This is extremely angry and infuriating for me. So, in the Indian context, if you will observe, many of these things, for example, this very rhyme, in India, all children look forward to a shower or, a spell of rain because they want to play in the rain. But in the United Kingdom, people are tired of rains because it rains all the time. So this is just an example to show that our education system was very outside of the local context. So this education institution now is going to be, or rather lay emphasis on both local language learning as well as local contextual learning. So this whole colonial imprint on our education system, that is now going to be a thing of the past, because this education system is firmly a step towards an Indian education system. That is a very, very big achievement in itself. Friends, in addition to that, like all of us know, this education system has also laid emphasis on promoting and permitting world-class universities, foreign universities, to set up campuses in India, whether it is, taking partnerships in with local universities or anything like that, or even independently doing that. Now, studies say that Indian students spend upwards of a few $billion every year by going outside and studying. It's huge money, Indian money, which is going outside of the country because these students think or feel that they do not get good quality education by Indian universities. Now, by permitting foreign universities to come in India, work with and tie up in partnership with Indian institutions, this huge investment that Indian students were making by taking educational loans and making universities abroad richer, and thereby incurring huge financial costs and burdens to themselves and their families, that is now going to be a thing of the past. That is going to change. Now, what is that going to do? In all of our experience, we know that suppose a student takes an education loan to, say, study at a foreign university, he invariably is forced to also work there, get a job there in a foreign country, because he has to pay his tuition fees quickly, and that tuition fees was in dollars. So he now has to earn in dollars to pay that. This was, in fact, one of the prime reasons for India's brain drain. The best of Indian talent was going outside of the country because they were not getting good educational opportunities here. And when they would go to study, they had to finance their study by taking loans, and to repay their loans, they were forced to work there. And once they were working there and such things continued, the chances of them coming back to India and contributing for India's growth was therefore lessened. The country lost out on such great, talented people in the last so many years, so many decades. This was something that had to be changed, and this educational policy is changing it. In addition to that, this educational policy also has two other prongs of important focus. One is about National Technical Education Forum. Now, what is this Technological Education Forum? This forum is a platform called National Educational Technology Forum. This is going to be a game changer in introducing new technologies for educational purposes. In the last 2 years, the last 1 year, and it looks like, at least a major part of even this year is going to be all learning is going to be based on it, online tools and platform run education. So it is very important for us to start harnessing educational technologies for better propagation of education. Technology in education is going to make more education both accessible as well as affordable. The two big challenges that this education system was facing. So this is going to be a game changer, because for a very long time, both these aspects, there was no concentrated efforts at the national policy level, focusing on how, as a country, as a government, as a ecosystem, we can all come together to enhance the quality of educational technologies. So that is something that this education policy is focusing on. Friends, in addition to that, this education policy is also laying a great emphasis on research. We all know, and we all have been complaining, that for a very long time, India does not encourage good research. India does not encourage, or rather have and foster, a good research environment. And a research environment, research ecosystem cannot be fostered outside of the educational institutions and the university ecosystem. And all of this is interlinked. You encourage good research, you encourage good, foster better research institutions at the university level, you will have better technologies, you will have better industries, you will have better industries that will translate into more jobs and more creation of wealth for the country. So this is a virtuous cycle. You invest in research and you reap immense benefits. Research will lead to better technologies. Better technologies will lead to better industries. Better industries will lead to a lot of jobs. Better jobs will lead to more creation of wealth. And India desperately needs more wealth creation at all levels. So the focus on the National Research Foundation is something that is extremely important. Like you are already aware, the union government under the leadership of the Prime Minister has already committed 50,000 crores over the next 5 years for India's research, this National Research Foundation. So this is going to be a game changer, because it is going to, at all levels, foster research. And like you are already aware, at the school level, the Atal Tinkering Labs, Atal Innovation Mission, under the Atal Innovation Mission, the Atal Tinkering Labs that have been established has already started making children from school start thinking in the research angle, start thinking in the innovative angle. So this is taken care of, and at the higher education level by the National Research Foundation. And this, I think, is also a very, very important step in that direction. Friends, these are some broad points that I have highlighted. In addition to this, the policy focuses on increasing the GER, the gross enrollment ratio of the country, to 50%, by 2030, which is a very ambitious target, which is also going to create more highly educated Indians, more skilled Indians. So starting from school education to higher education, this educational policy has touched all aspects, whether it is deregulating the higher education, the school education space, making it available for more autonomy, giving focus on local language, local context education, promoting Indian languages in education, removing the rigid artificial barriers, making a very important change in the pedagogy of the school learning and curriculum, empowering educational institutions to have partnerships with foreign universities to, in fact, bring more expertise in better learning, focusing on teacher education, focusing on ensuring that research as a medium of teaching, as a medium for national development is focused on. This education policy has focused all aspects of education policy, starting from even sign language standardization to making sure that education in school is not going to be a one size fit all approach, but will be tailored to every single student's and individual's need, aspiration, and potential. This education policy is a game changer. The National Education Policy 2020 is therefore a root and branch reform of the Indian education system. We are all fortunate that this came at a time where we all could participate in it, give ideas for it, see that it has become a reality, and also most importantly, ensure that this policy is also going to be translated and implemented during our time. All of you here, as heads of educational institutions and stakeholders in the educational system, have a very important role in the execution of this policy, implementing of the policy. I hope that all of you will try to do your best to ensure that India's educational ecosystem and landscape will be transformed for the better, so much so that India's educational institutions will be some of the best in the world, just like how Nalanda, Takshashila, the universities of ancient India attracted the best talents from around the world. India has been a leader in education, and our dream of becoming a Vishwaguru Bharat, the very name Vishwaguru means the teacher of the world, can happen only when we fix our educational system and make sure that from the school to the higher education, we offer the best and nothing but the best. Implementing this policy is in all of your hands. I wish all of you the very best. And I again hope that all of you will kindly take adequate care and protect yourself and your families and help everybody out in these very difficult times. Again, I want to end this talk of mine by remembering all those people who are fighting with so much dedication and relentless efforts this battle against pandemic. Let us all support them and wish them the very best. Namaste, dhanyavad. Friends, many of you are asking if I could take some questions. I would have loved to. Unfortunately, today I have a very important video conference call with a lot of doctors and private hospitals in my constituency to address a very, very pressing and urgent issues of the COVID pandemic in Bangalore. I hope that all of you will kindly permit me to leave this session now. I look forward to meeting with all of you one more time and speaking with all of you on this very important policy. Thank you so much. Bharat Mata ki Jai.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. It was indeed a very well articulated presentation, and we all have a direction, a disha of where to take forward our education. Thank you so much once again for your time. I would like to wish everybody, yes, thank you very much, sir. To all our participants, please do take care of yourselves, take care of your families, stay home, stay safe. Let's all wear the mask. Let's all take our vaccinations and be safe, and hope all of this will this also should sometime end, and I'm sure it will end. Till then, thank you very much for joining us on this day, this morning.